Now, no doubt a widely beloved Christmas story, and if you love it as much as I do, it's an awesome thing to have over 130 movie and TV adaptations to pick through as your favorite or favorites. I benefit from being in good company with my absolute favorite, the 1984 with George C. Scott, and my wife can say the same thing with her absolute favorite, Muppet Christmas Carol. But so many versions means so many different angles from which to look at the story. But let's talk about the benefits of having so many adaptations of this story, A Christmas Carol. Welcome to my channel, KC. That's me, Carrie Chug, the Sledge Storyteller, or in this case, the Christmas Storyteller. Here to talk about the wonderful world of Christmas storytelling and to open up discussion about how we can tell the best Christmas stories we possibly can. So, while I do have my favorite Christmas Carol, I learned to appreciate so many other versions that put in a little something that made it special. And so here I go with 6 categories of factors from various interpretations that make them also worth watching. Now, to clarify, not every original scene in an adaptation is a good one. In the case of both the 1938 version with Reginald Owen and the 1970 version with Albert Finney, they add enough to make it feel like the core plot fell off the rails. And those two I watched and enjoyed somewhat, and once was enough. On the other hand, the 2001 A Christmas Carol, the movie, it felt like it was barely even trying to follow the plot created by Charles Dickens, with 9 out of 10 scenes feeling like they were extra. My first viewing alone felt like it was a viewing and a half too many. But instances where an extra scene is barely noticeable and works so well, that's where we bring up 1984. It works so well where a young Ebenezer's sister has just picked him up to come home from his boarding school, only to meet with his brick wall father telling him that he will be home only 3 days before starting his apprenticeship with Mr. Fezziwig. The 1951 Alastair Sim version does push it when it comes to this, the extra scenes. While each scene carries powerful character revelations standalone, I believe maybe 1 or 2 should have been deleted since it does become a little convoluted. But the best ones have to be during the segment with Christmas Past. Scrooge's sister passes away, and as old Scrooge, he watches and realizes that he had missed her dying wish that he look after her newborn son. And Jacob Marley's death, greedy Scrooge, he acquires his former partner's possessions. Among the obscure versions I like, namely this 1982 cartoon, shows in the Jacob Marley scene a deeper elaboration by Marley over his deeds in life that he came to regret. Also in the Yet to Come segment, Scrooge is taken to his office and is shown that in the future it's occupied by a much more generous businessman, forcing Scrooge to see his big missed opportunity. All these bring more color to the story and enrich its characters while keeping close to the core plot. Testament to A Christmas Carol's timelessness as a classic, it's nice to see alternative versions that would pay proper homage to it. It would be inevitable, and how could the Great Depression not be a perfect setting for a Scrooge-like character? Here, Henry Winkler shows how misapplied ambition led to his fall from grace. There are character parallels to Marley and all 3 ghosts, and are brilliantly implemented with portrayals set up as apparitions of people Benedict Slade knows in the world and had been unkind to. Then there's a Fezziwig character who's featured more prominently in this iteration as a mentor. No charity collectors, just people who owed money to Benedict, and he in turn swindled in giving more than what was equitable. Scrooge found an audience, especially for those who want some raunchiness implemented into the story. Bill Murray's Frank Cross is not so much greedy as he is indifferent to everyone working with him in the Hollywood set that he's producing. And while the Ghost of Christmas Future is modeled the same, Ghosts of Christmas Past and Present are nothing like their traditional counterparts, all the more indicative that they weren't trying too hard to parallel everything in the original story. My favorite TV series episode adaptation was in the original Quantum Leap, where Sam Beckett takes the Scrooge figure to areas that reminded him of his past and to where he needed to go to make him aware of circumstances of the present. No ghost until the future segment. There have been quite a few half-hour versions of the story that obviously had to go through condensing. The 1949 early television version, flawed largely because it feels like all scenes were done in half-hearted single takes with cheap props. Then you have the masterfully animated 1971 version with Alastair Sim reprising his famous role in a voiceover fashion. A bit rushed, but the exquisite beauty of the animation and all key scenes are done justly, make it worthy of turning to it if you have a hankering for some Scrooge and only a half hour to spare. The most popular is very likely Mickey's Christmas Carol. What makes it stand out is while several scenes were left out, all principal characters are included and properly addressed, and the key emotions come into play. We get about 5 seconds of revelation of Tiny Tim's death, and you totally feel the emotions of that. All core Disney characters are effectively implemented, and Scrooge's character arc works just fine in the kids' movie context. I'll say it's optimal option for introducing your kids to the classic Dickens story. And along those same lines, so the aforementioned version works for kids in terms of simplicity, but also in that same light, The Muppets Christmas Carol, also made by Disney, may well be the best next step for the more elaborate scenes and layered characters. It readily makes justified changes based on Muppet lore. I mean, how else are you going to portray Fezziwig but as Fozziwig? Jacob Marley, he traditionally gets under Scrooge's skin, so who does that kind of thing better than Statler and Waldorf in the Muppet world? Now I see a single Marley working the most effectively in the story, with the focus being on just the one. But again, there's no leaving out Statler and Waldorf, and no character or characters befitting them. But it's the only musical version where I think all the songs work. Funny, sad, and warm whenever the setting calls for it. Similarly, Mr. Magoo's Christmas Carol brings the title character's grumpy charm to the show that it's tailor-made for. In the case of Scrooge, the fact that it was the first ever Christmas special cartoon would tell you that it was the first attempt of acquainting kids with the story of A Christmas Carol. But lots of easy ways for the young and uninitiated to get their feet wet in this powerful Christmas story. Testament to how layered Ebenezer Scrooge is as a character. You see the amazing level of talent that has gone into casting the role. 2 Academy Award winners, George C. Scott and Michael Caine, and I am aware that Scott refused his Oscar, but between those two and Alastair Sim, we see how effective performances that know how to exude charm in Scrooge, even to a degree before he shows his change of heart in the end. With Sim, it's that, somewhere between a grunt and a chuckle. With Scott, it's his chuckle coupled with that mean shiftiness.
I said, Merry Christmas, Uncle. Humbug.
In the case of Caine, he knows the meanest possible thing to say at the perfect time.
Let us deal with the eviction notices for tomorrow, Mr. Cratchit.
Tomorrow's Christmas, sir.
Very well. You may gift wrap them.
And having those examples, I can appreciate the big contrast in Patrick Stewart.
What's Christmas time to you but a time for paying bills without money? A time for finding yourself a year older and not an hour richer.
Who's downright stone cold at every turn before the big nighttime visitations start. But not my preference, but it does work to have Scrooge's change of heart show an even bigger contrast to what he had been before. I've never directed a stage or screen adaptation of A Christmas Carol. The closest I've come to directing anything are those short skits found here and there in my videos, so I can't speak for the varying difficulty for each of the scenes, and it may also be due to some concern that using them might slow the story's flow, but some of those scenes, albeit rarely, do get used in the better known movies. Dickens originally wrote in at the tail end of Marley's ghost scene a moment where the ghosts of the other dead rich people are trying to help the living poor, and for all their efforts they cannot. It's just too late for them. The best version of that is with the Sim version. And I also like the very brief version of that in the 1982 cartoon. And there's a scene set during Scrooge's tour of the future depicting a young couple relieved over Scrooge's death, knowing that they'll get a brief respite from making payments. That's shown in the Patrick Stewart version.
He's dead.
To whom will our debt be transferred?
I don't know.
I never thought a death could bring so much happiness.
No.
And also the 2009 Disney version. I guess I had to include that at some point. But I do enjoy enough the 1977 version with Alastair Sim's very own Jacob Marley, Michael Hordern playing Scrooge. That includes this scene, but I'll recommend this version if you're okay with the Masterpiece Theater low budget set, production quality. In conclusion, if you're a big connoisseur of A Christmas Carol, you've been blessed with enough versions to completely round out the story, bring their own unique qualities. Chances are you've already taken advantage of all these sources thanks to YouTube and so many other streaming options to get scope of all those options. But all these vast and ready resources have made it so easy to dig up. But that's my take on the benefits of so many adaptations of A Christmas Carol. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, please click like. If you like this channel, please click subscribe or follow me on Instagram. Agree, disagree, or something I left out, please let me know in the comment section. But the link to order Sledge number 1 and number 2 is in the description below. Or you can order Sledge number 1 on Kindle. In both cases, they're available on both digital and paper format. And I'm going to keep saying it, let's all look for civility amid all the bad news out there, all the hate out there, social, political strife. Let's see each other as potential friends, not as potential enemies. But thanks for watching. Everyone be safe, and God bless.